Why do herbicides fail, and how can I prevent that from happening on my farm?
Well, Brand and I have both been out on many farms over the years that have had a herbicide failure. And a lot of times it's, well, who do we blame for this? Whose fault is it? And it may not be anybody's fault. There may be a number of things.
Let's be blunt here. It's always somebody's fault.
No, it's not. But there are a number of things that we find that, hey, here's a mistake that was made along the way. And it's not mainly to blame anybody. It's just to make sure that mistake doesn't happen again.
Right.
So let's just start with early season applications. Why do we have issues with burn down early in the season?
Well, it's too cold. These herbicides weren't designed to work when it's 35 degrees. They have to have weeds that are actively growing. So that's really the big key when we start talking about early season. The number one overlying factor with all this, so before we get into all these other little causes, we've got too many weeds in the field. So if you've done a poor job in the past, and no offense, hey, that's the way it goes. Okay, so let's blame it on the old owner of the ground, all right? Whatever. If you want to blame somebody else.
Your brother. See, that's why I farm with your brother.
But anyway, all I'm trying to say is, if you've let weeds go to seed 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, guess what? You're still dealing with a big weed bank out there, and that's the problem. These herbicides, none of them are 100% killers. They're going to do pretty well, but they can't get everything.
I can't tell you how many rented fields I've been on where I bring a chemical rep out with me and I say, hey, you know what? Your product just didn't work well enough here. We controlled some of the weeds, but not all. And the rep said, oh yeah, I was in this field last year or 2 years ago with a previous tenant, and it was a problem then too. And that's why it just keeps going from hand to hand, because wow, somebody has a weed control disaster and they just don't want to spend the money to get it fixed because it's rented ground and might be gone next year.
And that's really what it takes. You just have to step up and use some higher rates and invest a little bit more money. So Darren talked earlier about why don't herbicides work early in the season? It's too cold. If it's too cold, either don't spray or up the rate as long as you're still on label.
Okay, let's look at the soil applied residual herbicides. There's a lot more residual herbicides getting used in soybeans, for example, than there used to be. If we have problems with those pre's, what's the cause of that?
It's never just as simple as one little thing. It's usually a combination of 2 or 3 factors. You didn't have enough rate. You had too many weeds. The weather conditions weren't quite right. You didn't use the right spray adjuvants. You had a tank mix partner. Yeah, you did tillage and you cut up the weed roots below ground, so now you didn't completely kill the whole perennial root system.
Or you left streaks with your tillage because your tillage implement needed to be adjusted a little bit or needed some new parts. So it's just one of those things. You got to be honest with yourself. Just go look at it, find those things that happened, and make sure they don't happen to you again.
Here's the other big thing. You have to be realistic with the weather conditions you normally have in your area. We're in a dry area of the country. We know darn well if we spray a Preemerge herbicide out after we've planted the crop, we have little chance for that to work because we need a timely rain. So what I have to do instead is go spray a month or 2 months earlier. If I spray when the ground is frozen in the morning and thawing in the afternoons in March in our area, you know what? Now I've got a month and a half to get a rainfall before my weeds are going to start to come up. So I extended my window. Now I'm in a lot better shape. The other thing that could help is incorporation. Put the herbicide down where the weeds are going to germinate. You're a lot more drought proof in that case. Well, once again, there are a lot of things that could happen. The big thing is, hey, let's look internally. What could I have done different to make this situation better? And in some cases, it's just investing a little more money. In some cases, it's just flat out, let's wait a day or two until the weather conditions are better and try to work with a good agronomist that can help you make the right decisions for your farm and make the right herbicide investments.
Well, you got to make the right investment to control our Weed of the Week. We'll show you how to do it coming up next.